Welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio, where we bring you conversations with the top business minds on Long Island and around the nation every week. Featuring expert consultants and small business owners who have found success but are also willing to share their top tips, failures, and give gritty, matter-of-fact advice based on their firsthand experience. Now, let's get down to business on Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Hello and welcome to Tower Talk Business Radio. My name is Ray Schwetz, AVP of Business Banking at Jovia Financial Credit Union, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, CEO, keeper of the brand, marketing and digital agency.
We're focused on being the premier resource for business and entrepreneurship. We bring you weekly business advice, tips, tools, and services that help you grow your business. Plus, we interview some of the top business leaders in the industry.
And I'm very excited today because today we have a good friend of ours. His name is Paul Williams, and he is with Absolutely Trophies, and also he's with the Inner City Handball Association. Paul, welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Ray, Donyshia.
We're so excited to have you come into the show and talk about all the wonderful trophies that you design and you, I'm going to say, manifest someone's in celebration of whatever their milestone in their life. And then also talk about handball. So that's exciting.
Yeah, and you've been doing some great work, some great charity work. So very excited to get into that. So I guess why don't you tell us a little bit about how you kind of got started in the whole in the Inner City Handball Association?
Yeah, well, you know what? I guess I'm a product of my environment. Grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn. All right, and I've been playing handball since I was 10. I was fortunate enough, probably about the age of 13, to have some people took an interest of me playing street handball and thinking that I should be exposed to club handball, which many of the kids throughout the city don't know anything about club handball. And that's playing 3-wall and 4-wall handball. So with 3-wall and 4-wall handball, that was more like the upper tier of handball players. You know, there were a lot of teachers, doctors, professionals, business people that played the sport, but they played in clubs like Brooklyn Union Temple, New York Athletic Club, you know, private clubs of the YMCA, and most kids were not exposed to that. So I got fortunate to be offered a 2-year membership to Brooklyn Union Temple, and with that I learned how to get involved with club ball, play across the world, you know, nationally, internationally. And it was a great experience for me, especially growing up in Bedford-Stuyvesant and realizing that, you know, other kids should be exposed to that. And so when I became like 30 years old, I decided to found my own association, which was the Inner City Handball Association. And basically we educate, mentor, and serve young people through the sport of handball. And basically teaching them, you know, life lessons that can be learned between being disciplined, working with other people, learning how to make sure you finish school, get a good education, become a good citizen, and give back to your community. And so those are the lessons that I teach you that. And I've been doing it for 32 years, and I enjoy it. And a lot of the younger kids that started out with me when they were like 12 and 13, we still associate and play ball together. And it's been a really fun trip, you know, mentoring young men and women in the sport of handball.
It's so interesting because I'm like sitting here visualizing you playing on the court at, you know, 271, IS 271 in Brooklyn. You know, I have no idea if you've ever played there or not, but I can just see you like on the court back in the 70s or 80s playing when handball was really, really, you know, exciting and really brought a sense of community together. For those people who lived in the area. And now to hear you say that, you know, there's associations, I never would imagine that there would be a full associations. I'm feeling like Forrest Gump right now, right? Where you have like ping pong and now it has grown to, you know, become an Olympic sport. And so we'd just love to hear about, you know, your journey and your vision on where the game or the sport of handball is going.
Well, you know, there is a national association. That's the United States Handball Association is based out of Tucson, Arizona. And I used to be a board member and vice president of that association. I also was the, you know, president of the World Handball Council for about 6 years, which deals with world handball in probably about like 23 countries. And, you know, through all that time, the biggest thing, you know, handball doesn't have the sponsorship that these other sports have. So it's an organization and a community that gives to itself. Our biggest donors are our own grassroots contributors, and they make sure, and they're very loyal to the sport. And, the players that I've known since I was maybe 12, the ones that are still alive, we're still friends. Okay? And everybody in the handball community is like that. You can know people you compete against, your friends for the next 40 years throughout your lifetime. I'm hoping, I just co-partnered with a group. We just launched a handball channel about maybe 8 months ago on Roku networks.
Nice.
It's called the Handball Channel. It's a 24-hour streaming station. And, we've been putting content, on there, but we haven't put any new content. In fact, I'm looking to expand it a little bit more with newer content. But handball has been pretty exciting right now. We've had some good contributors in different foundations because we are a nonprofit 501c3 that have supported the sport since we give out scholarships to young people. For college scholarships, they're not large. Only like maybe $2,000, $2,000 to $5,000. But they're helpful to young people who
Absolutely.
are going to school. And some of our players in the past, they've been able to get college scholarships going to. There's about 24 to 30 colleges throughout the country that have handball teams, and they compete on an intercollegiate level.
Wow.
Yeah,
I would have never thought.
A lot of people don't know this, and this has been going on for over 70 years. Okay, it's just that, and especially young people in the neighborhood, local streets, didn't know about it at all. I didn't know about it at all until I was exposed to it. And so we've had a lot of, parents that, been loving the idea that their kid could get a scholarship because they're not a football player, not a basketball player, not a tennis player, but they play handball because New York has 2,000 handball courts.
Right.
And the 2,000 handball courts that's there, they're pretty free. So, instead of just playing out there locally and thinking it's just a game and that's it, there are a lot of opportunities. Whether you're a tournament coordinator, you're a referee, there's paid opportunities for young people who want to get involved with the sport. And now with the digital age where we have website designs, we have possible TV stations that we can use, radio station, podcasts. There's all sorts of applications that if you're involved in handball, you can be involved with our association as well as the national group.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Roku channel is a step in the right direction. As you mentioned, all the advances in technology helping to kind of get the message out there. How else are you getting the message out there? Because I imagine, doing this for 30 plus years, partnering with the schools. How is it that you're getting your messages out there?
It's a little bit tough because I guess it helps. First of all, since I do play the sport, I'm in the Handball Hall of Fame. And so people want to meet me sometimes and, want to find out more about the Handball Hall of Fame because they never even knew they existed.
Right.
Okay. So a lot of the schools, I also referee for the PSAL. So I deal with 100 schools that they have handball teams. So I meet the young people that are competing throughout the season. I'm probably the only vendor in New York City that has a store that sells handball equipment.
Wow.
So I do sell handball equipment. The kids come to the store and they'll buy gloves and the parents ask for information. And we do clinics. I'm on the board of the YMCA also, Jamaica YMCA. So through the YMCA system, any YMCA that has handball courts, we buy citywide memberships for those kids and make sure we have programs within the Ys. So this way kids get the benefit of being a YMCA member because there's a lot of good programs throughout the Y. They also have handball, and they get to put that together. And so between that and they tell their friends who are in their schools, because every school with the teams, there's at least maybe 20 to 30 kids on a team, and usually they have at least 10 friends. So you figure there's over 3,000 kids that are playing handball, organized handball, that do know about it, but they don't know that after high school they can still benefit from the sport.
Yeah, that's good information. I had no idea. And so when you say you sell equipment, I heard you mention gloves. In my day, I've never seen anyone wear gloves. It's just, you see them hitting the ball. And, as a young person in Brooklyn, I was like, oh my God, their hand must be really hurting. And so what type, you mentioned,
that was the difference between club handball and street handball.
Okay.
Street handball, we used our bare hands. We had a Pensy Pinky or a Spalding ball.
Okay.
And that's what we played with.
Right.
But then the clubs used to play with a small black ball. And that small black ball, hurt your hands a little bit, especially as you got a little older. When you're a kid, you hit the ball, you don't care, you hit it with your hand. But there's a deerskin leather glove that's sold, the main manufacturer is Owen Gloves in Idaho. Des Moines, Iowa. Sorry. And then there's the United States Handball Association. They sell gloves. It's deerskin gloves, and it just helps your hand when you're playing with that small ball. The small ball is hard, it's over the years it's gotten a little bit softer, but that's what's played indoor and outdoor now. And as far as the major competitions there, international and national.
You are listening to Tower Talk Business Radio on the voice of National Community College, 90.3 WHPC. I'm Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill. Our guest today is Paul Williams of Absolutely Trophies and the Inner City Handball Association. Paul, I imagine there's so many stories of folks that you've worked with. Can you share with us maybe one or two stories of folks who are kind of impacted by the work that you do and how that translates to their success in life?
Oh, there's so many different young people, men and women. Some of them are actually like superintendents in the Glaziers unions, and they do, multi-million-dollar jobs in Manhattan, which is great. And they started out with me when they were 12 and ended up going to Europe with me to Wales and Ireland. And, got married, had kids, and they're still competing and still playing. And they have a very successful life. And then the others, become in the police department, and, they looked at community service because they want to give back also. Some are firemen, which, I never thought of myself going through a burning building. But these young people have, that attitude of competition and dedication and give back to their community. And, this is what they do. And then some have just gone on to, not just gone on, but have gone to college out of state and come back to New York and become, technology professionals. So there's so many different stories. And it's always good, you can't save every kid, but you know what? There's a lot of kids that when they see what's happening and it's such an inexpensive sport and the passion that's in it for all the players that get involved, they like to stay in that community. And we encourage everyone to try and, even if they're not a good player, there's other things that they can do to support the sport. And so most, we have young players that, they're not that skilled, but they like to referee. They like to be able to take the stats. They like to be able to maybe write articles about it. They like the excitement of being in that community and being able to say, hey, you know what, I know him and I've seen him play. And, they can, when we have, like doing a podcast or doing, something on the handball channel, they can be an announcer, and talk more about the game.
So many opportunities.
This is great to hear because, racquetball really increased a lot during COVID. You now have pickleball. To hear that, that handball is really on the rise again, I'm sure, and expanding is really fantastic.
We do about 9 tournaments a year. This year, we'll be doing 9 tournaments. Normally, we've done like maybe 5 or 6. In each tournament, we usually have about at least 125 to 150 kids for the weekend that compete at any site. And that's throughout the city, whether it's Central Park, Coney Island. We're having a tournament at LA Fitness, March 4th and 5th coming up. And, it's going to be well attended by players in New York City as well as players out of state.
And so now, it's all about, sports is all about who wins, who loses, and the score. Yeah. How do you keep score with handball? I never knew that.
Yeah, it's a 21-point game. Okay. 2 out of 3, 21-point games, 11-point tiebreaker. That's what's on the regular local level. Sometimes the pros, they'll do 15-point games because, and they do rally scoring where, usually you only score when you're serving in the sport of handball. So the object is to be able to get up to serve and score your points first to get 21 wins. In some of the pro events, they do rally scoring so you can get a point whether you're serving or whether you get down or whether you're not serving. And that's a little bit faster pace. But it's a great game. I encourage anyone to get involved with it. So I've been playing for 53 years. I love it still, and I still play 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, it's not a big, sponsorship or driven sport, but you would think, right? You would think it would be because the handball, ball wall itself, that's a sponsor's dream.
But the problem is we don't have the equipment. That's most of the sponsors want to sponsor equipment. So they want to sponsor the sneakers. They want to sponsor the shirts and the shorts. Because we're handball players, we use everyone's shirts and shorts. So we can use. So they don't specifically, want to target our sport because they say, oh, well, they're going to buy it anyway. And even though Nike at one point tried to make a handball sneaker, in fact, we met with them up in Portland, Oregon, and, to see how the movement was on the court. And they had the engineers actually on the court playing handball to just see how the movements was. But they never really came out with the sneaker just for the sport. But, we have beverage companies, we have health food companies that are interested. But like our strongest support has always come from foundations. The Jim Jacobs Foundation is our biggest contributor, and they've been supporting our organization for probably almost 20 years. And then we have the New York Athletic Club Foundation. Small foundations have been funding us, and that's been a big help. But we need to get corporate sponsorship. Maybe a Jovia Bank. You never know.
There you go. Well, I love the idea of having that green color on the wall.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that would be fantastic. Now, there's obviously passion behind what you do. You don't do something for 50 years because you don't love it. But to me, it sounds like it even goes beyond that, right?
Well, yeah, you know what? When I grew up, it was during the time of the assassination of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and, JFK. And so I guess as a young person, it was just a lot of chaos that was going on, and you just can understand why people did things like that. Yeah. On the handball court, even though rough areas in Brooklyn, different nationalities didn't quite click sometimes, but if you were a good handball player, then everybody welcomed you. Okay? And so that was sort of like a barrier breaker for me to be able to then go into different areas and, no matter what they thought initially, because you were able to be competitive with them, then they wanted to know you. Right. And they wanted to get to know you. They didn't just judge you anymore because of the color of your skin or the neighborhood you were from. So to me, it was just like, since we were, he was taught we need to get along and try and get along the best as possible, as human beings. And so playing handball was my way of going to different places where maybe I was the only one that was there of my color, and, people would have a certain, preconceived notion of who I was. And especially if you're from New York and you go out of state, first of all, African-American and you're a New Yorker. That's even worse.
Right.
So I had doubles. So, but then after they got to know you and, so most of my contributors were from the Midwest and the West Coast, and they've always supported what I tried to do. And so it made me realize that it didn't really necessarily, even though race was always an issue, but once people got to really know you and they started seeing other kids from the area, bring kids from Bed-Stuy, the Bronx to different tournaments, East New York, and they were like, wow, these kids aren't bad as they thought they were, and it opened up people's minds a little bit differently. And so that was important to me to say, this is a way I can impact my community, and maybe part of the world if I can bring a sport to them and give them a different perspective of people from New York City, especially from Bed-Stuy and the 5 boroughs of New York. And it always worked. Everywhere I go, it's always a surprise. And they always say, where are you from? And I said, Bed-Stuy. And they're like, what? I'm like, what's the problem?
And so we've talked about inner city handball. Let's talk a little bit about Absolutely Trophies. How did you start that business? And
it was, I started that business because I was unemployed. Okay. My business, I have a bachelor's in computer science and an associate's in physics. So I've always been in technology. And I worked for companies that always gave me very good flexibility in doing my passion, handball. So I guess in 2009, there was a recession. Okay. And I was working as a project manager for Local 3. And I was laid off because I was only there for like 6 years. In fact, one of my kids' parents was able to get me into the union because of my technology background, and I was doing street lighting, managing street lighting for Manhattan and Staten Island at the time. So it was interesting. But then when the recession hit, now I'm out of work. First time in my life, 50 years old. Barack Obama is president. Yeah, I should have been happy. No, it wasn't a happy time. And because of the nonprofit, again, the owner of a Crown Trophy, he saw my articles about my association. So he had sent a check donation to say, if you ever need trophies, here's a donation, thank you for what you do. But if you ever need trophies, why don't you get it from us? And so I said, okay, maybe I will. He gave us some money. Let me try them. And we had a good relationship. And then eventually he also had computers, which had problems, and I helped him with his computers. And then when the recession hit, he wanted to get out of the business, and he thought I should be interested in buying the business. And I was like, no way. But he kept on, and I said, look, you have all the background, you should be able to make this work. And so he gave me an opportunity to take over the business. I rebranded it, got new equipment, got new technology, and said, okay, this business can give me the flexibility that I want to, that I need to be able to do the things I want to do personally in my life. And it did. The first 5 years was a little bit tough. We've been in business 12 years. After that, then it got easier and easier, hired more people. I have interns that come in from the city, and it's been really a good experience. And I like it now. I guess for my background of being at Brooklyn Tech High School, I never got a chance to really use my hands the way I wanted to, with just computers. And in trophy business, then was able to start using my hands, teach others to use their hands, technology, laser equipment, UV equipment. It's fun.
That was one of the things I wanted to ask you. I was curious if it helped you dip into that side. Are you designing the trophies and?
Yeah, background, when I said technology, so I already did, AutoCAD software when I was with the union. So we had, design software. So to me, everything was, I just had to get the equipment there in the store.
That's a nice transition.
Yeah, I didn't think it was but, my family and friends thought I was crazy. But, all the tools that I had really made it easy for me to go into this business, and it was a good business to be in. To expand, and we're still just at the tip of the iceberg of what we can do in growth. I wish I went into that business maybe 20 years ago, as opposed to just getting involved with 12 years. But I think I'll be in there for a little longer time too.
You're listening to Tower Talk Business Radio. Our guest today is Paul Williams, Absolutely Trophies, and Inner City Handball Association. My name is Donyshia Boston-Hill, along with Ray Schwetz on the Voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.
Now, for the trophy business, how do you see things evolving in the future? Because, obviously, with the technology evolving daily and the software evolving daily, that's got to be impacting the business a bit.
Yeah, I try and stay up to date with new technology, because that's what makes it fun for me, getting new computers, getting new software. I love that part, which a lot of trophy vendors don't like that part.
Okay.
Which the previous owner didn't like that at all. He did not want to do anything with new technology. So, I want to get 3D printers, because I love doing, crystal in lasering in crystal, as well as there's just a lot of technologies out for doing promotional products. There's so much out there that you can do. Biggest problem, though, for me is, having space to do it. Mm-hmm. New York City is expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, just for rent. So, I was thinking of opening a place in Long Island also, to have like a second office in Long Island, a second store. And, I'm working on that, because my ideal would be have a place in Queens, just like where I am, one in Brooklyn and one in Long Island.
Yeah.
That would be ideal. But, it depends on cost and, just how business expands. So it's in my mind. I'm manifesting it.
Yes, indeed.
That's what we're going to do.
And hopefully that'll actually happen. Luckily I'm a New York State and City MBE. So I'm a minority business enterprise. So for New York State, New York City, Nassau County, and Westchester. And so I've been getting a lot more government contracts. So that's made it easier to hire more people and to try and see about expanding, in the future.
Yeah, and with Long Island, there's so many opportunities now, I feel like, to expand. With everything that happened with the pandemic, commercial real estate is a little bit more available than it used to be. We have developments in the Hoppening Industrial Park, which is now the Innovation Park.
Right.
So maybe there's opportunities there for you.
Absolutely. And so Paul, I've seen your trophies, and I have one that I'm manifesting for to hit my desk soon. And so, what do you like about it? What do you like about, making trophies for people?
Just the idea that you're making something that helps motivate them, show appreciation for what they've done. I've won many trophies in my life. From the sport of handball. And I know how I felt. And so giving people the opportunity of feeling that way and just thanking them for what they've done, it's good. It's a good feeling. It's just something, it's just really, I never thought I would be giving people a good feeling like that other than just in sports. But every day, people come in for, I have customers that come in for the simplest thing to just, show their appreciation, their love to someone. And when we create something for them, they're like, oh, this is perfect. And I'm like, wow, okay. I'm glad we made you happy. Sometimes I take it more lighter than I should, but when you see the person's face light up, then you say, wow, this was good.
Well, that's the thing. You really are taking something that is an accomplishment to someone and you're making it a solid object, something that they can refer to. And I know, when I see a trophy that I've won, it does take me back to that place and inspires me to do more on a daily basis. So, yeah, you can credit yourself for doing that kind of work. Now, what is the one thing that you want to make sure that you leave our listener with? What is the one thought you want to make sure that people come away from our conversation knowing and thinking?
Well, just that support your nonprofits that are helping your community. Support Inner City Handball because it does make a difference to help young people. Young people are our future, and anything that we can do to make their lives better or give them motivation so that they can become better citizens and better human beings themselves, that's what they should do, support them.
Yeah,
and Paul, can you also tell us where you're located and how people can contact you?
Located, Absolutely Trophies is in Bayside, Queens. We're at 21201 48th Avenue in Bayside. They can reach us. We have a website, absolutelytrophies.com. Which our email is all on there, as well as our contact phone numbers. And our nonprofit is Inner City Handball Association, which is ICHA.org. And there has plenty of information to contact me personally, as well as the rest of the members of my board.
That's fantastic. And I wanted to share with everyone what I loved working with you, Paul, on trophies is that if you don't see it on the website, he will find it for you. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Yep, it's great to have you here. And we want to leave you with DB's philosophy.
You are your own trophy. And don't forget, technology can lead you to a new career.
Want to thank you for being with us. My name is Ray Schwetz, along with Donyshia Boston-Hill, your co-host and producers. Visit nccradio.org for more information. We are available on Odyssey, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, as a podcast on iTunes, Android Podcasts, and Spreaker. This has been Tower Talk Business Radio, powered by the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.